This message arrives to describe a moment of recognition, not to celebrate it. The angels say your value did not suddenly increase, and it did not need to be proven. Something simply shifted, quietly and internally. Like a scale that had been balanced for a long time, it tipped almost imperceptibly. They noticed the change late, and that delayed awareness unsettled them more than they expected. Nothing dramatic happened on the surface. There were no declarations, no sudden gestures, no emotional scenes, but something moved underneath. The angels say this shift was not caused by something you did, but by something you stopped doing. When you stepped back, the space you left began to speak in a way your presence never needed to. For a long time, your steadiness functioned like ground beneath their feet. Reliable, consistent, unnoticed. People often fail to recognize what supports them until it is no longer quietly compensating. The angels say value is rarely perceived while it is accommodating. It becomes visible when it is no longer over-explaining itself. They did not truly see you while you were adjusting, understanding, smoothing edges, and holding balance. In those moments, you were carrying weight, not occupying space. When you stopped carrying, the weight became apparent. The absence did not highlight your role. It highlighted your impact. This recognition did not come because you demanded it. It came because contrast emerged. The angels emphasize this point carefully. Value is not revealed through argument or explanation. It is revealed through difference. And difference is only felt when something consistent is no longer present in the same way. The angels are clear about something important here. This realization is not arriving late because you are unclear or invisible. It arrived late because they were not ready to meet it. Readiness determines perception. Until someone is capable of seeing, even the clearest presence can remain unregistered. What they are experiencing now does not necessarily feel like regret. It feels more like discomfort. The angels explain that delayed recognition often produces internal imbalance rather than immediate remorse. Something feels off, but it is not yet fully understood. They sense a shift without having language for it. You may not have noticed this change because your attention had already turned inward. You are no longer scanning for response or validation. The angels say this matters. You did not step back to be noticed. You stepped back because something inside you recalibrated. Your quiet withdrawal carried no demand. Your value did not increase in their eyes, because value does not fluctuate. It remains constant. What changed was the angle of perception. In your absence, they could finally feel the steadiness you once provided. That feeling did not produce praise. It produced comparison. Comparison is often unsettling. It forces awareness of what was taken for granted. The angels say this awareness can feel disorienting because it exposes an imbalance that had been masked by your consistency. This is the ripple you may have sensed without fully naming. It is important to hear this clearly. This recognition is not an invitation. It is not a call for you to return, explain, or respond. The angels say it is not about you taking action. It is about them encountering contrast within themselves. You may have wondered why this awareness did not come sooner. The angels soften that question. It did not come sooner because the conditions were not there. Your value is always present, but perception depends on timing. This was not about your absence being necessary. It was about their readiness being delayed. This part of the message is meant to protect you from a subtle trap. Do not turn this recognition into an expectation. Do not wait for it to materialize into words or gestures. That would place your center back outside yourself. The angels say you have already moved beyond that. They may be re-evaluating something internally, but you are not under review. You are not being measured. You are already standing where you belong. The angels say this steadiness is the most important part of the message. This first phase is a moment of naming, not responding. Acknowledging that something shifted without assigning yourself responsibility for what comes next. You are not required to clarify, engage, or complete anything. If you feel calm as you read this, that is significant. The angels do not elevate you by diminishing others. They do not rewrite the past to validate the present. They simply place what is happening into its proper context. This recognition is not a conclusion. It is a transition, but not one that redirects your path. It clarifies your position. You are always carrying value. Now that value is being felt elsewhere, perhaps later than expected. The angels say this gently. Late recognition does not bind you. It does not define you. It simply reflects the weight you carried quietly, now finally registering in someone else's balance. What they are experiencing belongs to them. What belongs to you is your center, and remaining in that center is all that is being asked of you now. As the angels continue, they explain why this recognition arrived only after you stepped back. Value is often invisible when it is constantly available. When something is always present, always adjusting, always stabilizing the environment, it becomes part of the background. The angels say familiarity can quietly erase appreciation, not because the value is small, but because it is reliable. While you were giving, adapting, and smoothing emotional edges, your presence felt normal to them. Not insignificant, just unquestioned. The angels say many people mistake consistency for effortlessness. They assume what comes easily to them requires no cost to the one providing it. This misunderstanding is not malicious, but it delays awareness. When you stopped overgiving, something fundamental changed. You did not withdraw to make a point. You did not create distance to provoke a reaction. You simply returned to your own center. The angels say this return altered the emotional landscape more than any explanation ever could. People do not always recognize value by how much is offered. They recognize it by how much is missed. When you were compensating, the balance felt stable. When you stopped compensating, the imbalance became noticeable. The angels say this is when recognition begins, not through loss, but through contrast. This delayed awareness does not mean they underestimated you intentionally. It means they were not yet capable of perceiving what you are holding. Emotional maturity develops unevenly. Some people only understand steadiness after it is no longer silently absorbing everything for them. The angels are careful to emphasize that this realization is not about blame. It is about development. They were accustomed to a certain level of emotional support and regulation without understanding its source. When that source became less available, they were forced to notice what had changed. You stepping back was not a strategy. It was a necessity. The angels say this matters, because when withdrawal is authentic, it carries truth without explanation. You did not announce a boundary. You embodied one. An embodiment leaves a deeper imprint than words. They may now be comparing how things feel with and without your presence. This comparison is not romantic or dramatic. It is practical and internal. They are sensing the difference between stability and its absence. The angels say this difference is what unsettles them. This unsettled feeling does not automatically lead to action. Often it leads to reflection first. People reassess patterns when something reliable is no longer cushioning their experience. The angels say this reassessment is happening quietly, without urgency, without outward expression. It is important that you do not interpret this as an invitation to re-engage. Recognition does not require response. Awareness does not demand access. The angels say this realization belongs to their inner world, not to your responsibility. You may feel tempted to ask why they did not see this sooner. The angels gently release that question. Perception depends on readiness. Until someone is ready to see, even the clearest presence remains partially invisible. This delay was not about your clarity. It was about their capacity. Your value was not created by their recognition. It existed before and independent of it. The angels say holding both truths at once is what keeps you free. They see now, but your worth did not wait for that moment to be real. This phase of the message is meant to prevent resentment from forming. Late recognition can easily turn into bitterness if it is personalized. The angels ask you not to carry that weight. Their realization reflects their growth curve, not your timing. What matters most is that you did not collapse inward or become smaller when you stepped back. You did not punish. You did not demand. You simply stopped explaining yourself. The angels say this is why the recognition, though delayed, is genuine. Value is not understood when it is negotiated. It is understood when it is felt. You stopped negotiating. Feeling followed naturally. This feeling is theirs to process. Your steadiness now comes from within, not from being needed. The angels say this shift is permanent, because it is rooted in self-respect, not reaction. This recognition may continue unfolding quietly on their side, or it may remain unspoken. Either way, it does not change your position. You are no longer orienting yourself around whether you are seen. The angels leave this part of the message with one clear truth. Delayed recognition does not require delayed peace. You have already moved into a place where your value is not up for discussion. What they are realizing belongs to their journey. What you have reclaimed belongs to yours. As the angels continue, they explain what this delayed recognition is actually doing inside them. It is not creating panic, urgency, or a rush to correct the past. Instead, it is creating a pause, a moment where movement slows and attention turns inward. The angels say this distinction matters because true realization begins with stillness, not reaction. They are not suddenly afraid of losing you. What unsettles them is something quieter. They are noticing contrast, the difference between how things felt when your steadiness was present and how things feel without it being quietly available. This contrast invites reflection, not pursuit. It asks questions rather than demanding answers. The angels say this realization often shows up as recalibration. They begin to reassess patterns they never questioned before. How balance was maintained. How emotional stability was sourced. How much was received without being consciously acknowledged. This reassessment is internal and subtle, not performative. You may see no external sign of this process. No messages. No explanations. No visible shift. But the angels emphasize that inner rebalancing rarely announces itself. People often need time to sit with discomfort before they can articulate what it means. Discomfort here is not regret. It is awareness waking up. This awareness does not automatically translate into action, and it is important that you do not wait for it to. The angels are clear that this internal process belongs to them. It is not something you are meant to monitor, influence, or respond to. Your role in this phase is non-participation. What they are feeling now is not loss. It is perspective. Loss pulls outward. Perspective turns inward. The angels say this perspective is asking them to look at their own readiness, not your availability. That is why it feels disorienting rather than dramatic. You stepping back created a mirror, not a vacuum. In that mirror, they see the difference between presence that stabilizes and absence that reveals imbalance. This is not a judgment against them. It is an invitation for growth. But growth happens privately first. The angels caution you against interpreting this realization as a signal. It is not a message directed at you. It is an internal reckoning that uses contrast as its teacher. You happen to be the contrast, not the destination. If there is a sense of neutrality in you now, that is exactly where the angels want you to remain. Neutrality does not mean numbness. It means you are no longer organizing your emotional state around their awareness. This is a sign of self-possession. They may be quietly questioning themselves. They may be reviewing choices, habits, or assumptions. Or they may simply feel that something important has shifted without fully understanding why. The angels say all of this can happen without ever reaching you directly. What matters is that you are no longer positioned as the answer to their discomfort. Their rebalancing is theirs to complete. You are not required to return, reassure, or resolve anything. This stage of the message is about preserving the boundary you did not have to announce. By staying where you are, you allow their realization to remain authentic. Any interference would distort it. The angels say, this is where many people lose their grounding. They mistake recognition for an opening. They step forward to meet it. But you are not being asked to step forward. You are being asked to stay rooted. Your steadiness now comes from knowing that impact does not require proximity. Influence does not require access. You have already done what was needed simply by returning to yourself. This internal rebalancing may take time. It may never fully surface, but its existence does not change your path. You are no longer defined by how you are perceived, only by how you are aligned. The angels leave this part of the message with clarity. What they are processing is real, but it is not yours to carry. Your role ended when you stopped overextending. Everything after that unfolds without your involvement. And that is not loss. That is balance restored. As the angels close this message, they return your attention fully to where your stability now lives. Not in how you are perceived, not in whether recognition turns into action, but in how firmly you are standing within yourself. They say this clearly. Awareness arriving late does not obligate you to reopen anything that has already settled inside you. At this stage, your value no longer depends on being seen. You are not waiting for confirmation, response, or correction. The need to be acknowledged has softened because you already know where you stand. This is not detachment. It is integration. You are no longer organizing your sense of worth around external recognition. The angels emphasize that peace does not come from being recognized. It comes from no longer needing recognition to feel whole. That shift has already occurred within you. What others are realizing now does not alter that internal balance. It simply reflects it back, quietly and without demand. You may notice that even if information reaches you later, it does not carry the same emotional charge. It does not pull you forward or backward. You can receive it calmly or let it pass without disruption. This neutrality is not indifference. It is sovereignty. The angels say this is where the cycle truly closes. Not when someone else understands your value, but when your sense of self no longer moves in response to whether they do. You are not required to respond to being seen. Being seen does not require action. If there is any impulse to explain, justify, or reconnect, the angels ask you to pause and observe it without judgment. That impulse belongs to an older pattern, one that equated effort with worth. You have already stepped out of that pattern. There is nothing to correct. This moment is not about reunion, resolution, or recognition turning into form. It is about letting awareness be enough. Awareness does not ask for proof. It does not ask for movement. It simply exists, complete. The angels leave you with this grounding truth. Your worth did not rise when it was noticed. It did not fall when it was overlooked. It remained constant throughout. What changed was not you, but the timing of someone else's readiness to see. You are now standing in a place where delayed recognition cannot pull you off center. You are free to continue forward without carrying unfinished business. Whatever others process from here unfolds without your involvement. This is not the end of something meaningful. It is the settling of something already understood. You know your value, and knowing it allows you to move on without resistance, without waiting, and without needing the story to continue. The angels step back here, not because the message is unfinished, but because it has fully landed. You are steady. You are clear. And that clarity does not depend on who finally noticed it.